So like many of the YouTubers I watch, I decided to try to do a food budget challenge video, but what is a food budget challenge? That's where we're going to try to live off of a set amount of money for a predetermined amount of days. I'm going to be doing $2.22 per day for 3 days, so a total of $6.66 for the week. This week's goals are to survive the 3 days, creating 9 unique meals going across breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. Now, this exercise is to stress and maximize your personal creativity with your limited constraints of your financial cash you have on hand. So this is in no way to diminish how hard it is to live off of a small amount of money, and this will probably prove quite the opposite. So the rules for the weekend are as follows. I'm allowing myself 1 tablespoon of each an herb, a spice, a sauce, and oil. 1 foraged item from the garden, not unlimited access, because I'd be pile driving my tomatoes and everything else in the garden, wouldn't make it much of a challenge. Tea and coffee just for caffeine and something to drink. Things not allowed. No urban foraging. So the free sugar packets and jams from restaurants or grocery stores, out of the question. Maybe if this goes well, that'll be included in a future video. Other than that, I'm not allowed to do or eat anything outside of what I can buy with our limited money. So now we're heading over to a shopping montage where you can see all the ingredients I'm going to be living off of for the next 3 days. So going to the store was just a little bit of a stretch where I wanted to buy some bulk items or loose vegetables, but a lot of the stores didn't quite have what I was looking to get, or it really wasn't in the budget, it wasn't in the price range. I couldn't go for the larger quantity. Some of the vegetables where I wanted loose veggies, they were bulk packages where they were costing by themselves over my entire weekend budget. So what we ended up getting was a couple of basic staples for $1 at the Walmart. Basic white sliced Italian bread, cheap, flexible. We could probably figure out something to do with that. 1 banana for 14 cents at Aldi's. Pound of rice for about 90 some cents. A box of stuffing, and I think I might have ideas for this, whether it's for possibly flavoring some things because there's a lot of stuff in this stuffing that I think would taste really good. Eggs. And these were one of the more expensive items, but hopefully I'm going to have some versatility. Right now, egg prices have skyrocketed. They used to be pretty cheap, about $1.20 a dozen, and I almost paid $1.20 for 6 right now. But egg prices always seem to fluctuate. And then steamed mixed vegetables. So I'm hoping in here there's a good variety of stuff where we could do a couple of different meals with this. I'm going to pick some of the peas, maybe the carrots out, and use them for their own purposes. And then finally, some beef chorizo that we got at Walmart, and it was only, I think, $1 something cents, maybe $2 something cents. It was pretty cheap, and I'm hoping this has a lot of fat and a lot of flavor packed into it, hopefully to get some sort of utility. And this is it. Hopefully we can get 9 unique meals across 3 different days with this. But I think it's going to be a stretch because, again, we didn't have any of the versatility of a lot of the fresh vegetables because none of it was within the price range even close. So, we're back with morning, having a little bit of tea, and I just need enough to get me through a couple hours until lunchtime. It's going to be a couple of pieces of plain toast. I wish I could butter them, throw some jam on them, but we're making do with what we have. Dry toast is going to have to do. And this is honestly as exciting as this is going to get for breakfast. It's toast. It's exactly what you would think it would be. Well, that'll hold me over till lunch. So one of the first things I'm looking at doing is blending up some of this stuffing mix because it's full of things like dehydrated celery and garlic and other things that might contain a lot of flavor. So I'm hoping to potentially use this as some sort of seasoning powder. And we'll see how well it blends up. I think I only want to use about half of it. We might need that as a side dish or something, because to cook this, it requires quite a bit of butter. Yeah, half a stick of butter, 1/4 cup of butter to make that. I could still make it just without the butter, but we're going to see if we can make another use for it. I'm going to get a little bit of prep work done. Some of this might be for days in the future, but some of it I might eat today. I think I'm going to use about half of this beef chorizo. It's a little over half a pound. It's 9 ounces, so this should be good enough. This is raw. My idea is with these seasoned breadcrumbs and this chorizo, which also has seasoning, I might be able to make some sort of chorizo meatball, but it might work for what we have in front of us. It's very, very high in fat content, which might be a good thing for us. So, 1 egg. Maybe I should have scrambled that first, but yeah, we'll start there. What are you doing, Chester? Styrofoam's not for you, Chester. Oh, about yay would be good. So we can sear those off and maybe have a little sandwich made out of them. Let's hope these little bad boys release some grease. And while that is cooking, We're going to prepare just a little bit of the rice ahead of time, just in case I'm going to need it for any of the meals in the future. I'm thinking maybe a fried rice is in our future, so... Make sure to flip those just a little more often. So I think we've sufficiently hit browning on, or burning for that matter, on most sides. I would say that this now, it's been on for quite a few minutes. It's definitely cooked through. I'm going to cut the heat, let them finish out. We'll try to make something out of this. Now something else I'm going to do on the side, for probably meals in the future, is separate some of the corn and peas out of here for dishes in the future. I mean, obviously something you'd normally not do when you're looking to make vegetables. You just buy the proper bag of mixed or fresh or whatever you need for your dish, but I have some ideas individually for some of these items. Okay, so without getting too nitty-gritty and nitpicky and picking every individual kernel of corn out of here, I think I got mostly what I needed here without spending all day separating a mixed bag of veg. Now in this pan, just as a side dish, I'm going to toss just a handful of just these frozen mixed veggie in there, just to have something on the side. We'll give those a quick saute. Now for my one foraged item, I'm going to be using a tomato out of the garden. We're going to try to make a quick tomato sauce. Onto the pan. There's plenty of greens, mostly carrots and green beans, but that'll do. That'll fill me up just fine. We're going to stew these tomatoes down into basically a quick sauce. So, what I was thinking, a few meatballs, a couple of pieces of just white bread, maybe making some sort of saucy, chorizo spiced meatball sandwich of sorts, just to give it a little bit of something to swim in. I mean, bon appetit. It's actually pretty decent. The stuffing and chorizo do a lot of heavy lifting. The tomato sauce is extremely plain, but with all of the seasonings that are in here, it's not much of an issue. If anything, I wouldn't mind reducing that down just a little bit more, make it a tad thicker for these. And now while the vegetables, no surprise there, it's salt and pepper vegetables. So that all went reasonably well. Very good. We do have a few chorizo meatballs left and a little more tomato sauce that we could probably incorporate these somewhere later in the week. I'm sure I'll find something to do with it. And we're probably heading over to dinner. So we're back with dinner, and I had a harebrained idea here. I was thinking of trying to make some egg drop soup, but the biggest issue is we kind of don't have any stock. Now, I was thinking, what is egg drop soup but cornstarch and maybe some chicken bouillon? So I'm wondering if the rest of this stuffing, breadcrumb, can be used to make a stock. Could we get some sort of stock? I mean, the bread will obviously act as a thickener. Will this turn into possibly some sort of flavored soup? I'm not really too sure, but hey, it's all about experimentation, so we're going to give this a go. So we'll do a little bit of water. I can always boil it down. I'm not too sure about this. It might have some bread in there, but hopefully if we simmer it down, it'll kind of just break down. We'll see how it turns out. But meanwhile, a couple of eggs for the egg drop portion. Now, I only have about 50% faith in this, that this is even going to work, but it's worth a shot. Now, I unfortunately don't want to use my one herb or one spice yet. I think I'm going to have some ideas for them in the future. So I'm going to try this as is, and hopefully that stuffing mix will carry us the rest of the way through. I think to give this a little more body and flavor, a little bit of that mixed vegetable from earlier. Give that a taste for some seasoning. It's a little underwhelming. I think a little bit of salt and pepper will... Probably a lot of pepper. Will carry this a long way. It may be a hair too thick. To get the perfect egg drop threads. This may end up more of a egg custard bread mix than it is a soup. And I think my suspicions on that one are correct. Maybe less of a soup, more of a bread. I think I had a little too much faith in how much seasoning is in that bread. So we've managed to make some sort of viscous medieval peasant gruel. Kind of looks similar to like an oatmeal or something like that, but it's gonna be a different beast. Hopefully it tastes better than it looks, now that it's set a little bit. So, not terrible. Definitely palatable, edible. It's going to fill me up for sure. Maybe this isn't exactly what I wanted to be eating tonight, but for the pennies I have, this will do just fine. But I'm gonna finish a bowl of this, maybe a little more, and I'll see everyone for breakfast tomorrow. Right, so we're back this morning. I'm thinking about having a little toast with some egg, and I'm worried I don't have anything to cook my egg in. I'm thinking of doing a little over-easy egg, but because of this chorizo not being necessarily meat, but more as a fat source, I'm thinking about cooking a little bit of chorizo in here just to release some fat, and then frying the egg in the chorizo. It'll give it a little seasoning, a little flavor, and just having toast and egg for breakfast, real simple, real easy. And we can still reserve some of that later. Push that chorizo to the side. What's left of it, at least. And in. Crack one egg. So we're going to do a little bit of pepper. I'm going to go gently on the salt because that chorizo has some. Now a quick flip. And we'll give it just a couple of seconds on the side. We'll plate it up and we'll just have a little bit of toast, egg, a side of this sauteed mess. And we are back at the kitchen table. A little bit of tea. I'm still allowing myself some caffeine sources, especially early in the AM. So I wish I had a little bit of butter to put on this toast, but so a little bit of this and that on there. Quite nice. There's enough flavor in there. I was hoping for a little bit more chorizo fat. It's missing something like a bacon, hash browns, but overall enjoyable. Filling enough. Now I'll finish this. We're on to our last lunch and our last dinner for the day. So for lunch, I got a little bit of an idea. It's mostly going to be a rice-based dish. Just going to do some Mexican rice with a little bit of fried chorizo on the side and a little bit of that toasted corn that we separated earlier. And just have a nice little, I guess, Mexican Tex-Mex Southwestern sort of deal. Now, I'm not going to be using the rice cooker this time, but I'm just going to use the bowl to measure out my rice. Now we still have probably about a third of a bag left of the rice, but let me wash this rice really quick. Okay, so rice is washed. I want to sear down a little bit of this chorizo to see if I can render some fat out of here that I can add to the rice. Now I'm unsure. I don't think I want to add all of this chorizo. I might want some of it for tomorrow, so we'll do about, yeah, that appears to be half. We'll put the rest away just in case I want that for something else, but I still have those leftover chorizo meatballs too. So it appears the chorizo almost does not have enough protein to hold together into a shape or a form. I would have started this all in the same. So I'm going to toast the rice for about 10 minutes. So now that this rice is toasted up just a little bit, I'm going to add the rest of this tomato sauce. For my spice of choice, I have a homemade rice seasoning blend. It's got things like garlic powder, onion powder. So 1 tablespoon of the rice spice. And we'll be doing about a cup of water. We're going to cover, turn down the heat for about 15-20 minutes. We're going to get this nice and hot, and we're going to toast up a little bit of that corn that we had separated earlier. Looks pretty toasted. I'll get that shut off. So, timer's up. Shut the heat. Give this a quick stir. Let's plate this up. Less dishes. I'm just going to reuse the bowl that I had the sauce in earlier. Now granted, my plan was to make the rice, add chorizo crumbles on the top, and then top with a little bit of toasted corn. A little bit of a textural difference. All right. A nice little bowl of rice mush. We'll do a little bit with the corn, with a little bit of everything. The flavor's not bad. The texture's strange. It's definitely the cheap rice. I think a little bit of pepper over the top. If this was served as a side with something, I'd be totally okay with it. I can't really taste much of the chorizo, but the heat, the spice is in there. But it tastes like just a nice little tomato Mexican rice. I wish I did have those meat crumbles on top, but this will keep me full enough through the rest of the day where I at least won't be hungry. So I'm going to finish the rest of this, and we'll take it over to dinner later. So now we've carried over to dinner. And really, we've kind of dwindled down our resources just a little bit. We have that day-old rice from yesterday. Made that up. That's ready to go. There's a decent, quite a couple of portions in there. So what I was thinking of doing with that was just a basic egg fried rice. A lot of rice-based dishes, but you know, we're kind of lacking in multitude of ingredients, but at the very least, a quick little egg fried. I was gonna try to do these in my wok, but I don't think I have enough oil, because I'm using my 1 tablespoon of cooking oil for this fried rice. Now the chorizo, I'm not sure if I want to add all that chorizo flavor to a fried rice. I think I want to cook those eggs up in about half of this, and then save the other half for when I toss the rice in. So about a half a tablespoon in. The eggs will cook in that. But the other thing that will be thrown into this fried rice is some green peas. Now, in between meals as a little snack, I have eaten slices of just that Italian bread, just plain. Because I have a lot of bread. I thought maybe I'd have more usage for it. I thought bread is a great staple. Why not buy that? Use it. The meatball subs was a good idea. I thought about doing breadcrumbs with it, but the stuffing mix came in handy for that. It was already dry, it was already seasoned, so maybe I could have done a little better without that bread. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, just kind of break these up into little egg chunks. Make sure I don't overcook them. White rice, I'll try to crumble up first in my hand before we get it thrown in there while the oil's heating up. So I'm thinking, maybe with this sauce allowance, I might be going the route of soy. But those peas that we separated earlier, I know some people don't like peas in their fried rice, but I don't mind, and it adds a little something more to the dish. Normally I'd add a little bit of white pepper, but salt and black pepper are the only things on the list. Things like ginger or garlic would be very good in this. It's going to be pretty one-dimensional, unfortunately, so in with the egg. One tablespoon of soy sauce. We still have quite a bit of this leftover rice. We'll have to see if we can make something with that tomorrow. So right, now we have our completed fried rice, egg fried rice. But just a touch more salt. A couple more shakes of pepper. Now, it's definitely missing aromatics. Green onion, regular onion. Now this is the bare definition. Bare bones. It tastes quite good. But it's acceptable. If this was served to me, I would not turn it down. Now that I think about it. Oyster sauce. And I could have substituted my avocado oil for sesame oil. All of those things would have been a better call, but hindsight's 2020. We'll live with our mistakes. So, I will see everyone tomorrow morning for hopefully a decent little breakfast. Alright, so it's morning. Our banana has ripened up a decent amount, so I'm going to chop this up and put it in this pan. We're going to caramelize the banana a little bit, and we're going to add our leftover rice and have a rice porridge. I kept this one for last due to the fact that I want that banana to ripen as much as possible for the highest sugar content I could possibly get, because it's got a lot of rice to sweeten up. Now that both sides have seared, we'll just add the rest of our leftover rice here and some water. And we'll hit that with just a little bit of salt to bring the flavor along. We might have too much rice in here, now that I look at it, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. And we'll cover, and we'll let that cook. Alright, so rice porridge with possibly just a little too much rice and not enough banana. This would probably be something a little bit of cinnamon sugar or cardamom would do fantastic in. A little more salt, bring out some flavor. So as I expected, too much rice, not enough banana, but the flavor's still there. It hints at banana. This is relatively filling. Not bad, but I'm going to finish it, and we'll carry on over to lunch. Alright, so we don't have much left. We got a little bit of this chorizo. I know everything's chorizo, rice, and bread, but the creativity is dried up a little bit. So I'm thinking of just having little chorizo rice sandwiches, almost like a little burrito filling, but instead just between two slices of bread, we have that leftover rice, that Mexican rice that we made. Now, it also has chorizo in it, chorizo across the board, but I'm out of ideas for lunch, and this sounds just as good as almost anything else. So the rest of that chorizo in. We still have those chorizo meatballs. I think I might be having that for dinner today. Use those up. Now, we got a plain Jane sort of burrito sandwich here, and the only thing I can think of is I have some old cilantro, and I'll allow myself a garnish of that just to throw this a little bit of a different flavor. I could have used this the other day. I totally forgot about it, but it'll add a new dimension of flavor so it doesn't feel as samey. Spread a spoonful of that on here. I'd call this a struggle meal. But, actually, the flavor on that is quite good. The cilantro does a lot of heavy lifting. So that was satisfying. It was good enough. For dinner, if I can't think of anything, we might just be having a whole big smorgasbord of leftovers just because there's really not much else I can do. But I'll see you all in the evening. We do often get some guests while we eat lunch sometimes. So, for dinner, we're going to actually cook this stuffing mix up with some boiling water, as would normally be directed. A little bit more water would be fine. But we'll let that absorb up and see if we needed any more water. But we're just going to have that with a little bit of leftover chorizo meatballs and mixed vegetables, and that's basically going to be dinner. Maybe I'll have a piece of bread on the side if I'm feeling a little peckish, but let's throw this all on a plate. So, a bare bones sort of dinner, a little bit of leftovers, some of which we've already had, like the mixed vegetable, with just a little salt and pepper. It tastes like any mixed vegetable you'd get at any store, frozen. It tastes exactly like what you think it tastes like. The chorizo meatballs, still very good. I think I preferred them with the sauce on a little sandwich like we had on day one. And the box stuffing mix is box stuffing mix. No surprises. Nothing to write home about. Non-offensive. Now I did realize in the box stuffing mix, a lot of the seasoning fell to the bottom of the box. So next time, if I were to ever do this again for some strange, unforeseen reason, I think I'd try to pull all the large bread cubes out and get to just that fine powdered seasoning in the bottom to use for things. Maybe the soup mix would have come out a lot better and less pudding, tapioca, oatmeal like. Which it still wasn't bad, but we had more bread than we did flavor. So as far as a final meal goes, I'm not hungry. It's not offensive. There's nothing wrong with anything I'm eating in front of me, but, you know, as always, you do wish for a little more. You wish for something different. But around the board, it's totally acceptable. So ranking each meal that we had over the weekend. Dry toast came in with a 5 out of 10. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was toast. Chorizo meatballs with sauce, an 8 out of 10. The meatballs were very good, and the heavy spices from the stuffing mix and chorizo paired well with the bland sauce. I would eat this again. Stuffing soup, a 5 out of 10. The taste was okay. To get the egg drop, we needed a little bit more stock. It was a textural nightmare, but the flavor was good. Chorizo crumble egg toast, 6 out of 10. Tasty, simple, nothing wrong with it, but a little lacking. Mexican rice with toasted corn comes in with a 7 out of 10. It was very good, but it felt more like a side dish than it did a main. Egg fried rice, 6 out of 10. It was good, but it lacked aromatics like garlic and ginger. We could have used oyster sauce instead of soy and sesame oil instead of avocado. That probably would have helped leaps and bounds more. Other than that, it was very plain. The banana rice porridge, 6 out of 10. It was tasty, but it needed less rice or more bananas. A little bit of cinnamon would help it. It has the potential to be a really good dish. Chorizo rice sandwiches, 7 out of 10. Good for what it was. A little more chorizo would have been better, but it shocked me with how much I actually liked it. Leftovers with stuffing, a 6 out of 10. Nothing wrong with this, but this dish lacked creativity and we were mostly just using up all the leftovers we had laying around at the end of the weekend. So now that the challenge is over, let's take a look at what we had left after all 9 of our meals are complete. So, first and foremost, what did a lot of the heavy lifting this weekend? The rice. Now we have probably, I'd say, maybe about a third of the bag, I'd say, left, third of a pound. So there's still quite a bit there. We have what's left of our egg drop stuffing soup mixture. I might eat this just to get rid of it, try not to waste anything. And last but not least, what's left of our bread loaf. There was 3 more slices here. I made some homemade pesto from the basil in the garden and decided to just go on and eat some bread with pesto. But so there was a couple more pieces. So I'd say out of the whole thing, maybe a quarter of the bread was left. The bread came in quite a few times off screen, as in if I wanted a snack between meals, I would just eat a slice of plain white bread just for something to munch on. This is all we ended up with left. Not a lot of leftovers. Could I stretch this to a 4th day? Probably. You know, maybe throw rice into this gruel. You have some bread in between meals and you're just eating plain rice and gruel for basically almost all 3 meals. Bread for breakfast, rice gruel for lunch and dinner. You could squeak out a 4th day. You wouldn't be happy about it. You wouldn't be comfortable doing it, but it's definitely possible.
So what did we learn? We can for sure make some interesting meals on a limited budget, but is there enough vitamins and minerals to be long-term sustainable? I really don't think it is. But we've also learned buying in bulk is your friend, because when you have such a limited amount of cash, you really can't stretch it as far. The larger packaged options tend to be cheaper by weight, but you cannot quite get it with the limited amount you have in your pocket. We also learned that it's not hard to make food with that money, but we learned that it's certainly not easy to make unique, tasty meals out of all of those items. Thank you for watching this food budget video challenge, and maybe in the future we'll have things similar to this.